Why would I be talking about home projects on this podcast that's about passion projects for moms? Well, that's because in my experience, there's quite a bit of overlap. So today's going to be part one of this topic. I'm going to give a quick primer on what a passion project is, and then describe some unique aspects of home projects as well as examples. I'm going to talk about two common pitfalls, which is how to stay on track and how to keep your family in the forefront. And I'll start us off with one of my high-performance strategies for addressing the pitfalls. And next week, I will round it out with the rest of my strategies. All right, let's get it done. Welcome to the Solve for Mom podcast. Here, you'll learn to customize your life to fit your passions. Hi, I'm Anoki Kapasi. I'm a mom, wife, and PhD-trained biomedical researcher. After a decade of designing a values-based life, I'm ready to show you how you can too. I'll help you take back control of your purpose and passions, guide you to strategically pivot, set goals, build knowledge and skills for your project, and practice critical thinking. If you're ready to go questing for your passions, level up your learning, and confidently pursue projects while still being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this complex equation we call life, it's time to sharpen our pencils and our minds and solve for mom. What are passion projects? Well, this is a central topic to this show, so we're definitely going to discuss this more deeply in future episodes. I'm going to give you my quick take on what a passion project is. Passion projects are something that get you very excited and you feel strongly about. When you work on a passion project, it's mostly for yourself. It's something you do because you enjoy it and it actually helps you connect with yourself more. These types of projects engage your curiosity and they stimulate you creatively or intellectually. There is no set time to a passion project. Really, they can be short-term and long-term. They can also evolve as you work on them more, so something that starts off as a short-term project can actually grow into many other projects or into long-term projects. You will find that they take time and effort to get good at. You feel pulled to develop your skills required for the passion project. You're willing to spend your free time and energy to do this because it brings you joy. It's very easy to reach a state of flow. Now, passion projects are quite unique in that they're not just hobbies, but they can be. And they're not just side hustles or something you monetize, but they can be. At its core, if it engages your curiosity and offers you some sort of stimulation creatively or intellectually or inspirationally, well, you can consider that a passion project. While it doesn't matter what you call it, home projects have often been passion projects for me. Once I start to think about a home project, it generates lots of questions in my head and I get to explore them, usually in conversation with my husband. I tap into a creative side of me and it often plays into my strengths of organization, prioritization, managing tasks, and making sure things get done, but also in a way that doesn't really feel like work. We've worked on many home projects as a family. Some of them have been large scale and we've had to hire contractors and coordinate. For example, landscaping or home improvement projects or solar panel installation. But then we've also done smaller scale projects which have been entirely done by us. For example, interior updates, selecting new furniture, crafting seasonal decor, creating family books to put on display, even coming up with systems for cleaning and organizing the house, or running donation drives. Here's some other examples for people to consider. You could start beekeeping or create a pollinator garden. You might want to refurbish your furniture or paint a room. You could even convert a room in your house to function as something completely new. It is entirely possible that you might start with one project, and then when that home project is done, it ends up opening the door or your interest to go into other things. That can happen either in scale or breadth. So a personal example is when I first started with a container garden in a very small patio in one of our first apartments. Eventually, when we moved to our house, that scaled up to a full backyard garden, and now we've added on a greenhouse. And I'm now actually researching homesteading even though I don't have the space for it because I just find it genuinely interesting. I've also scaled up my skills and expertise. So now I do composting, soil testing, foodscaping. I'm constantly looking into incorporating more native flora and pollinator-friendly plants. This one simple project has branched out to many sub-projects, such as making salves, soaps, seasonal wreaths, and I'm on the constant lookout for new garden-to-table recipes to try out. I've also been exposed to new topics which I am now interested in exploring further, such as health and nutrition, water conservation, and detoxifying my home. Now, there's many kinds of bumps in the road that you can come across when doing a home project, especially if there's an emergency situation and you have to get this home project off the ground ASAP. And also, it can be tricky when you have to involve contractors and other professionals. Today, I'm going to talk about how to stay on track and how to prioritize your family while working on home projects. Each of my strategies are going to help you manage your time in a family-centric way. The first strategy is to focus on actively planning and moving to the doing phase rather than getting stuck in a passively consuming and learning phase. Now, this is my weakest area when I work on home projects because you're going to find that it's easy to get stuck in a passive mode of researching and watching YouTube videos or entering this endless abyss of learning and then not taking action afterwards. It's easy to get tricked into thinking that you're making a lot of progress. And you're probably going to find that this is easy work to do in very small bits of time. While it's important to do some planning and researching, it's much more important to eventually move on to executing your ideas and plans. Yes, you might make some mistakes, and yes, you might not fully know what you're doing, but there's a little bit of adventure in that too, isn't there? And by the way, organizing and planning can actually be active as long as there's a concrete action at the end of it. It's okay to be in a passive phase before you have to spend money, or if there's a decision that requires you to be well informed. So that could be when safety is involved, or you have to spend a large sum of money, or your decision is essentially irreversible. Also, if a contractor requires your input, you might have to do a little bit of research to look into your preferences or things that you might want to incorporate. It's also okay to plan when the ball isn't in your court and you're basically just waiting for something to arrive or someone to start something. For example, if you wanted to build a home office as a detached unit on your property, you're probably going to need to do some research. What are the regulations? Do you need a permit? If you're building this from scratch and you're not doing it on your own, you're probably going to need some contractors. Who are you going to select? Who's available? What are they quoting you? Is that within your budget? And when the building phase has started, that might be a good time for you to coordinate with your subcontractors like painters or hardwood flooring experts. It might also be a good time for you to start selecting or purchasing furniture and other add-on items. And I do understand, it helps to be organized, and that is required. But make sure you also move on to the action steps. When you find yourself stuck in this planning mode, follow my process to help you move into the action mode. And it might help if you take notes at this point. So the first thing to do is to start with this initial modest burst of planning and research. And you should have two goals in mind. A feasibility assessment, and then figuring out what is essential to start. So the feasibility assessment is understanding whether it's possible for you to get the things you need, the people you need, the funds that you need, the space and the time that you need. And then figuring out what is essential just to start the project. After that, identify 3 things that need to happen for the home project to start. Which one should you do first, or can they co-occur? And who is needed to make the next thing happen? Follow all of this by addressing the low-hanging fruit. What can you do or practice or decide on very early that's kind of easy to do? You really want to get here as soon as possible because once you've done this, you have proof of concept that you can do this, and it's kind of a boost to your confidence. It's also a way for you to have a vested interest to finish the home project because you've already put in some effort. Now it's counterintuitive, but this is the time where you now go into a deeper learning and research phase for any lingering decisions or things that you want to level up on or some of the more involved actions. And as I said before, you can kind of do this concurrent to the other actions that you're doing. Now here's a pro tip for saving money. It is way later, after you've done all of this stuff, that you then purchase any shiny new gear or equipment or materials like furniture, because you don't want to spend your money unnecessarily, and you're undoubtedly going to find out things in terms of what is possible or not. You might reconfigure and readjust. It's going to affect your purchases. So, for example, in my garden, my seeds, they're the last thing that I buy, even though you can kind of think of them as the most essential component for the garden and something that I enjoy doing the most. So you want to cycle through these steps until your home project is done. So those steps are an initial burst of planning and research with 2 goals in mind, a feasibility assessment and figuring out what is essential to start. Then identify the next 3 things that need to happen and who has to do them, and then follow that up by addressing the low-hanging fruit. After that, go into the deeper mode of learning and research, but always attaching a specific action or decision. Then, almost towards the end, you purchase your gear and equipment. This process is kind of like those logic puzzles, the ones with the grid, and they give you clues. At first, you read the clues and you're kind of limited. You just do the really easy things to fill into the grid. But then the more you do and fill in, as you reread each clue, there's more inclusions and exclusions that become apparent. And then you build this momentum. And every time you read the clues, you get closer and closer to finishing the puzzle. In today's part 1 episode of How to Get Home Projects Done, we talked about how home projects can be a passion project of yours, especially when it starts your creative juices and it involves learning new skills and there's a level of joy and excitement to them. Perhaps it's the idea of doing something new for your home and your family, or maybe it's just fun to see progress and improvements. Home projects can help you better understand your personal and family identities. What we really want to do, though, is guard against 2 common pitfalls. And my strategies in today's episode and the companion episode that's going to come out next week will allow you to make consistent progress without compromising your family time. And it's also going to help you get over the hump of all the decision fatigue that can come with home projects and kind of suck the fun out of them. Don't forget to look at the show notes so that you can have a better handle on how to move out of the planning phase and into the more active doing phase of your home projects. I wish you the best of luck and lots of fun as you start your home projects. I hope today's episode will help you pursue your next passion project. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other ambitious mamas about it. Who knows, you might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review in Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. Thank you for making my show a part of your day. I hope you join me next week for another episode of the Solve for Mom podcast with Anoki Kapasi.